and welcome to another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Tears presented by the FantasyHolics. With us, as always, is Castle Black, Brian Bruder, wide receiver one room, Zach Rom, Mr. Oviedo here. The peace and calm of the NFL offseason is kind of over. The combine happened this week. The NFL draft is upon us soon. A lot of running back news this week with another domino falling of David Montgomery getting traded away, and that opening the door for Jir Gibbs to be 1-1 in a lot of fantasy drafts this year. It's the calm before the storm, and there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of fantasy takes to be had here. So what's the biggest takeaway from the David Montgomery deal?
That every person that owns him in every dynasty league I'm in put him on the trade block immediately.
Why not?
And I would just like to see the one idiot that was like, "Oh my God, right now is when I have to trade for David Montgomery. It's March the 2nd, it's March the 3rd. Just send a pick for him ASAP. Oh my God, he's on the block. Like, I hate that shit. It just, no one traded for him. Stop. We get it. You have David Montgomery. Congratulations. I have a lot of them too. I'm the only person that didn't put him on every trading block, I don't think.
I don't think I saw him put on any trade blocks in any of my leagues, which is crazy to think. And to also think I almost tried to trade for him the day before he got traded. I'm like, I don't trust him and such, and I might be able to get him cheaper. And then he got traded. I'm like, should have gone with my gut. Should have made that trade or started an offer, started talks. But some big news there. Some big news all over the place, from the combine to tag, who was tagged, who wasn't, who's going to be dropped. Got some, really diving into it already. And free agency begins a week from tomorrow, which again is crazy to think that's upon us too.
Yes, it was like the biggest domino to fall, sent a shockwave through the running back landscape with the Lions backfield with Gibbs and Montgomery, and then Breece Hall getting franchise tag, Kenneth Walker not getting the tag. There's like so many scenarios that people have been planning on all off season. Well, certainly Breece Hall is going somewhere, and I feel like a lot of people were planning on Kenneth Walker staying. That's not a certainty. You can just throw away the script right now. There's so much that will change within the next couple of weeks.
And ETN did not get tagged. He's a totally unrestricted free agent, along with Ken Walker, to go out there and get the biggest bag possible. And who knows, they could both certainly still end up where they were. They both have a whole career in Jacksonville and in Seattle, respectively. So we'll see what happens. Franchise tag is what they say it's going to be like $13 million. I guess Hall's going to end up getting 12, 13, which compared to the other positions ain't shit. I believe they said George Pickens is going to get about $27 million to be a franchise tag wide receiver. So yeah, they're worth less than half of wide receiver money, but in fantasy, they're worth just as much. Gotta have some good running backs in fantasy, especially given the scoring system. So these dudes are all valuable. It's pretty cool, interesting free agent class now that we know who officially is free agents.
Yeah, for sure. I know we were hoping Breece Hall moved somewhere else, and he's stuck there. It's going to be very interesting what Seattle does with not tagging Walker. You can understand that if you don't really want to pay a big, running back a ton of money, and depending on your team needs and such, especially when you don't have a rookie quarterback, you're paying your quarterback a ton. It's really hard to pay your running back a lot of money, because then it's almost a luxury position to some extent. And so when you have that and you're going to have to pay JSN soon, it's very difficult for Seattle to see what happens, especially Charbonnet's he's not going to be back this next year, or he might be back, but he's going to be a shell of himself coming back from that injury. That you really need a running back there, but Walker might have been too expensive for their taste, or they might try and sign him still or something. So, but if they can get someone in the free agent market, Dowdle might be a good one to go there because he's looking to have a starting role to a 1-year deal in Seattle, be their main running back there until Sharp gets back, and then he can move on, kind of like a prove it thing for Dowdle of he did well with the Panthers, but get a little more momentum going. There's a lot of options Seattle can do to help there and not spend a bunch of money on Walker, because coming off Super Bowl MVP, he's going to want a lot of money, and I don't think Seattle wants to pay that.
I think the safest bet that we can all make on how the running back is going to play out between the free agents and the rookie class is that there's about a 97% chance, guaranteed, that we don't like any of the landing spots. That the rookie get drafted somewhere we don't want, that these free agents end up in already cluttered backfields. The NFL doesn't give a fuck about our fantasy teams when it comes to the running backs, and the holy grail landing spots just never fucking happen.
Or if one of those happens, all of a sudden it'll be the same as Montgomery and that player will go on the block in every league, and they'll be hyping the player up and trying to get the most money they can for them if they land in some perfect spots.
Yeah. Or the perfect free agent signs in the perfect scenario, and you're like, yes, and you're buying, and you're like getting every share you can, and then the draft comes, and that team takes a running back in the 3rd round. And you're like, what are you doing? No, and then you're like second guessing everything.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a lot of strong running back 1Bs that are coming on free agents. That's going to mess up a lot of fantasy backfields. That's going to be very interesting to see. So, we'll be talking a lot more about that next week. In the extent of, that'll be the day before free agency, kind of our thoughts on where we think some of these guys might do well or whatnot. We'll be bringing that to you nice and good next week. But we'll talk about a couple things today. We'll talk about the Combine. We'll talk about David Montgomery a little more, him and Gibbs, and then talk about players that were franchise tagged, ones that weren't, kind of give thoughts on their players that were told that they're going to be cut, and diving into that a little. But with the Combine just ending, we'll dive into kind of just our thoughts on the Combine, what happened and such. If you haven't seen it, go to our Facebook page. It is littered with videos.
Yes.
Tons and tons of videos from the Combine. We had one of our FantasyHolics, one of the new members, Dustin from the Fantasy Healers, who attended the Combine this year. So he took as many videos as his phone battery would allow him to, and he posted a ton. It's really cool to see it from not just, the TV perspective, but someone in the stands. And he made a bunch of commentary on that. I'm sure he'll be talking about it on their next podcast as well. So take a look at that. That has some very neat footage. But going into this Combine, I think kind of we should talk about either what we're looking for in the Combine, what the Combine means to us, like when we're looking at our rankings for our players and what we're thinking. Do we care about, the 40-yard dash for our running backs or our wide receivers or the vertical? Like, there's some of these that you can train to do so much better on, the vertical, the 3-cone drill, different things like you can kind of train to do better. Whereas like the 40-yard dash is just run as fast as you can, so some of this you can't train as much to do better on. But I guess kind of, is there anything specifically you're explicitly looking for or drops kind of your players' values when you look at Combine results? Or is it kind of this is nice and more for entertainment purposes? What kind of weight do you guys put for the Combine?
To me, the only thing that I really take away from the Combine is I don't care. I honestly don't care. Like if a player was good in college and performed on the field, I don't give a shit what his underwear Olympics stats say. But whether I care about it or not, I touched on it last week. It matters in the capacity that these people will now move up and around draft boards to the rest of the world or to the majority of the world based on what happened at the combine. So I I'm a firm believer of, like, if I hear people that do a lot of rookie analysis and grading say that, hey, this guy was really fucking good, but he's slipping because of the combine, that's a guy that I'll move up my draft board, that I'll take, above whatever his now lowered consensus is. That's really the only thing I give a shit about. The very top guys, especially, they're the very top guys for a reason. Good example, a really good example. A few years back, Kairen Williams was considered like one of the best, if not the best, running back in his draft class coming in. Had one of the historically worst combines ever. There was even like a documentary. I remember, I think it was like an ESPN thing or NFL Network did like a full like hour thing about his whole college and prospect coming up through college and what happened to him at the combine. And Kairen slipped massively and then didn't even really get so much of a shot his very first year. But look at him. He's been fantastic. He's been an excellent NFL running back. So it's like just a perfect example of who gives a shit what happens at the combine. If you're a very good competitive player and you can play on a high level against high competition, the fuck does your 40 time in shorts matter when you're out there playing in full pads and stuff? So I don't give much of a shit. I really don't watch it much, but you do have to pay attention because it swings value whether you believe in it or like it or not.
Yeah, I don't want to put much weight in it at all. I think, if anything, I feel like the 3-cone drill is really important for receivers. Hand size is big for quarterbacks. Small hands. Kenny Pickett was a first-round pick with itty-bitty hands, and that didn't pan out too well. But it almost feel like if the combine is so irrelevant, if you get a red flag at the combine, you almost need to take a red flag into consideration. The player that comes to mind the most is Treylon Burks. Like, Treylon Burks was a bona fide first round pick. He had a lot of hype coming in. The Eagles traded A.J. Brown away to get the pick. And when you have the Titans taking a first round pick on a player that had a couple red flags, even from the combine, like a combine red flag gives me a little bit of a pause going forward. I don't think we had anybody this year, aside from Micaiah Lennon. That's up for discussion. I really don't put that much weight into the stats, but I do put I take a pause on some negative combine vibes.
Yeah. So for me, players shouldn't rise up your boards based upon what they do on the combine outside of extreme circumstances. If your running back gained 30 pounds of muscle and runs a faster 40 than they did in college, yeah, bring them up your draft board because that's huge. But that rarely, if ever, happens. Players shouldn't be rising up your draft boards based upon what they do in the combine, because what you get from that is Matthew Golden, who didn't have a touchdown in the regular season last year and just kind of faded into nothingness. But all of a sudden he had an amazing 40 time. He looked quick and people were expecting him to be a big burner, Tyreek Hill light, and he didn't do anything. Granted, it's 1 year. He still has a chance, but don't have people skyrocket up your boards based upon combine results. If anything, the only way players should rise up your boards in the combine is if other players drop based upon stuff in the combine. And in reality, that's just, as you mentioned, is just adding some red flags. And how many red flags do you care about to drop someone? It's not like this person is running a terrible 40 time, so they need to be dropped down. It's no, if there's a red flag or something, like a terrible 40-yard dash is not a red flag. But I'm looking at some measurables and such that you can't train to become better at. The combine, you can really train to have an amazing times. I think you mentioned that last week, Brian, or a week before. It was Eagles drafted a defensive lineman or edge rusher, someone that trained for the combine, had amazing combine scores, spent a first round pick, and he was all right, but he wasn't worth a first round pick. But that's because he trained to look good at the combine. That's
Mike Mimula, defensive end from Boston College, was projected as like a second round pick. All said and done, he probably had the career of a second round pick, but the Eagles traded the 12th overall pick and 2 second rounders to move up to 7 overall to take Mimula. And he even came out like after the fact, and I think his agent even came out and they said, yeah, we said, fuck it, let's just have him go full-blown cyborg level training to dominate these like 5 particular measurables at the combine. And he like set records in all of them because he spent, a whole offseason training to do it. And I mean, just the perfect example of why the combine numbers, shouldn't really sway you. Like, the guy was a pretty decent second round worthy pick, and that's what he should have been. That's what he was graded to be before the whole combine.
Yeah. I've before I dive into a couple things, I've seen a couple. I focus on wide receivers. I love wide receivers. There's 2 interesting things about wide receivers I've been seeing going around, mostly in the extent of Cardinal Tate and Mekhi Lemon. Both projected first-round pick. For the most part, both are projected top 10, 12 picks before the combine. Some people are freaking out about Cardinal Tate in that he ran a 4.55 40-yard dash. And like, he's so slow. It's, he can't really do much because of that. It's like, well, let's be realistic here. What was he expected to run? What were people going into the draft or into the combine thinking he was going to run? Oh, they were thinking he was going to run a 4.52. So when you look at that, all of a sudden, okay, we expected him to be slower, on the slower side. That's okay. There are top wide receivers in the NFL that aren't incredibly fast. Actually, we've seen players that have been too fast not develop a route tree and can't do anything in the NFL. When you look at players with similar size to Cardinal Tate that ran a slow 40, you're looking at CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, all ran the same, if not slower, 40-yard times at the combine than Cardinal Tate. That doesn't worry me at all. We weren't expecting him to be blazing hot speeds. The other one for Mekhi Lemon, and actually, before I jump into Mekhi Lemon, if any of our viewers, if you have any thoughts, if you have any players you want us to give us your thoughts on, or our thoughts on for the combine, if you want to give your thoughts, go ahead and comment. We'll gladly put it up and talk as much about this as you want. Then Mekhi Lemon, there's 2 things I want to bring up about him. One, I've been seeing some people say this, and I think it's crazy. I've seen some people say Mekhi Lemon, it dropped from a top 10 draft pick to a 3rd round draft pick in the NFL Combine because of his interview, a 15-minute interview with the press. And they're like, he interviewed so badly. And one NFL team said that he interviewed badly as well. And they're like, oh, he's dropping to the 3rd round. He's this year's Shedeur Sanders. Stay away from him. It's like, apparently it's something that it seemed like he was hitting on some of the reporters or something during the interview. It's like, no, someone should not drop 2 rounds because of that. Like, Shedeur Sanders was much more than just that. It was, you're looking at a long day. You're looking at these don't go overboard in dropping someone based upon that. Like, it's not like he was expected to run a 4.4 40 and ran a 4.6. Like, don't expect something like that. Like, the combine is to reassure you based upon what you saw in college, not to say, well, this is a huge character flaw off the field because of a 15-minute interview, despite not having any before. Like, no, don't do that. But the one thing about Mekhi Lemon that is very interesting to consider, and this is there's historical data going. What I saw was from 2000 to 2020. Is that for wide receivers who had less than a 9-inch hand size, there have only been 2 top 12 finishes in 20 years by by NFL wide receivers with under a 9-inch hand size. And Mekhi Lemon measured, I think it was like an 8 and 3/4, something like that. So, granted, you're looking at like T.Y. Hilton, I think is the wide receiver that posted those. And that's not to say Mekhi Lemon's not a great prospect. That's not to say you can't overcome this historical fact. It's something to consider. It's a minor red flag I'm marking of, okay, historically, like when there's only been one wide receiver to break this historical fact, that is something to consider. That's not something to say, well, Mekhi Lemon's better than that. That's something to consider. But I mean, but when you look at it, Antonio Brown had a 9-inch hand size. Devontae Adams had a 9-inch hand size. So like, it's not like it's game breaking. It's not like he all of a sudden can't do anything, but it's something I'm noting. I still love Mekhi Lemon. He's still in my top 3. He's still in my tier 1, but I didn't drop him down. It's just slight red flag. Other than that, it was a very, very interesting combine to see.
I have nothing to base this on, but I would say there's probably not a lot of wide receivers that even measure with small hands, period. If I had to guess. Like, I'm just saying, if you took 25 NFL wide receivers, how many of them have 9-inch hands or bigger?
9-inch is about the 10th or 12th percentile. So, or
like the 90th percentile, you mean? Like, so
no. Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it.
Like like if you took 20 NFL, no, fuck it. If you took 10 NFL wide receivers,
one would have a 9-inch hand size or lower.
Right. So like, yeah, exactly. So I'm saying like, how many of them are ever going to have a chance to finish in the top 12 in fantasy if 90% of the receivers in the league, you know what I mean?
Exactly. That's why it's a tiny red flag I'm putting there. I'm not dropping them because of it. Like, it's just something to note. But you're right. When I was like, I'm going to look into this, I'm like, there's going to be like no wide receivers to really compare this to. So why would I put all that effort into it when that's the case? And so it's interesting, but yeah, you're right. There's the sample size is so small.
So are his hands. It's weird. Like, did teams not know this going into the combine? Did teams not know that Lemon had small hands? He's going to need a very, very, very accurate quarterback, I'm guessing, to target the ball on his small hands.
Well, disregarding his hands, if you look at my player profile write-up for Mekhi Lemon, he needs an accurate quarterback. Because when you're talking about a guy who over half of his yards this last season came after the catch, you need an accurate quarterback to get you that ball in the run so you can get that yak, which he's great at. But if you have an inaccurate quarterback, if you have Anthony Richardson throwing the ball to you, you're not getting 8 yards after the catch no matter who you are, just because you're falling down or trying to fall over getting the ball and whatnot. So, like, get him an accurate quarterback, and I love Mekhi Lemon.
Just to touch on real quick, I looked at this real quick when you guys were still talking about 40 time. You've got currently I just asked ChatGPT who are some top NFL wide receivers 40 times. I didn't say the fastest or anything. I was pretty vague about it, and it just spit out the top 2: Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. They were 4.43, 4.38, elite level, and of course they're great. But then here you go, 4 in a row that I consider 4 of the best wide receivers in the NFL currently. CeeDee Lamb, 4.5. Amon-Ra, 4.51. Puka, 4.57. And You also looking at some older guys. You've got Devontae Adams 4.56, Mike Evans 4.51. Like, are you worried about them being good in the NFL? It's like especially like Amon-Ra and Puka.
Yeah.
Very arguably, I mean, everyone would just kind of automatically default to Chase and Jefferson, but Puka and Amon-Ra could very, very, very easily be considered the two best, most effective wide receivers in the NFL currently, and they just plummeted down the draft boards. Probably a chunk of it being because they ran 4.51 and 4.57. But if you're really good at football and you can get to the open area, the fuck does your 40 time matter, man? It's just, I don't know. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. There's two interesting 40 times to note, depending on how, like for me, 40 times for wide receivers, I don't care about, as long as they don't come in a lot slower than expected, or when you last saw them on the field versus the 40 time, as long as it doesn't drop a ton, like, oh, this person's out of shape, they're not, that speaks to work ethic. As long as you don't have to worry about that, I don't care. The two very interesting, very fast 40s that are seeing players jump up boards. You have Mike Washington Jr. from Arkansas, player featured on the left here. He is a 223-pound running back who ran a 4.33 40, which was the fastest at the combine, faster than Jeremiah Love, who came in second. So you're looking at a guy 223 pounds running a 4.33 40. You're seeing a lot of people jump him up boards, second round draft pick, third round draft pick, like jumping up because all of a sudden you're like, he's fast, he's athletic, and he's big. Now, I still have him lower down my rankings. I know tier 1 quarterback, he has his running back rankings. This didn't jump him up. But it's interesting to see he scored a phenomenal combine. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen with Mike Washington Jr. The other is Kenyon Sadiq. You guys have heard of him.
Love him.
He's the tight end on the right of this graphic, the tight end from Oregon, who 6'3", 241 pounds, ran a 4.39 40, had like a 11-foot broad jump, over a 43-inch vertical. Like, he is athletically, he is one of the most gifted combines we've seen, or gifted tight ends we've seen come out of the combine in recent years. So people had him as a first round pick. Some are talking he now jumped into the top 10, 15 picks of the NFL draft. Not as high as Kyle Pitts, but I don't think anyone's ever going to make that mistake again. But people are putting him up there with what Tyler Warren and Loveland were like coming out last year. And just from his raw athletic ability.
Yeah, I really like Sadiq. Watching the college film, watching like as much Oregon highlights as I can for the college football preview we did all year. He is like Harold Fannin in beast mode. He just defenders were trying to jam him or get up in his face, and Sadiq just overpowered any defender, every defender. He got separation. He is special. Top 15 is probably too rich for a lot of teams picking in that range that need bigger needs than a tight end. But man, he is going to be one of those a rare day one tight end game changers. He's a lot of fun to watch. There's no flaws in his game really. There, from what I saw, he is a tremendous athlete and a lot of fun to watch. And hopefully he goes to a situation where there's a lot of targets to be had. In the speed wasn't something I was anticipating.
Multiple of the the guys that they release early mocks for on the NFL Network had Sadiq going to the Eagles in their first mock, which makes sense. Goddard's a free agent.
Yeah.
Which I was in, I got to thinking, I'm like, okay, that'd be pretty cool. Say Goddard walks, they could bring him in. And now there's all this talk about them trying to move A.J. Brown, and that could still potentially happen. And I was thinking, if the Eagles could draft this dude, and Howie's pretty good at working around the draft board. He's pretty good at just acquiring assets too. So I don't have the list in front of me, but I think the Eagles probably have at least a couple extra mid-round picks other than their own to use as barter that they could potentially trade up from the early 20s, I think, where they're sitting now, or where they're 19, 20, wherever they're at, up to high enough where they need him. And that could be the linchpin to trade A.J. Brown. Because if they can keep a similar offense, still have Devontae Smith on the outside, but then bring in this kid as an elite pass-catching weapon to, not replace A.J. Brown since it's a different position, but to give them another high-end target in the passing game, I think that could be the reason that they actually move A.J. Brown. And I think even the guys that are mocking that to happen probably have something like that in mind as well. So we'll see. It's all fun and speculation, and we're still, 2 months from the draft, or close to it, I guess.
Now, I worry about Sadiq a little. I know you mentioned there's no flaws in this game, Patrick, except
He's small.
What he did in college.
For a tight end, he's small.
6'4" is, a touch, but just I worry about his production in college. Sure, he had some great highlights. He's going into NFL with under 900 career receiving yards, with only 80 career receptions. His final season was 51 catches for 560 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's never had over 560 yards catching in a season, and you're looking at 14 game seasons, not sometimes depending on your college schedule, you can get 11 to 16 games. 14 games, he only got 560 receiving yards. He's an incredible athletic specimen. My worry is that we've seen athletes come out and not do well in the NFL because you need to be more than just athletic to succeed. I think he needs to go to a place that can develop tight end and wait a couple of years, just because the production in college just isn't there. That's my worry.
Let me add one thing. Terrence Ferguson was ahead of him for a couple of years. That's why Sadiq wasn't getting the full target share. You're right. Maybe Sadiq isn't even Terrence Ferguson, but that remains to be seen. It's not like there was a entire role for Sadiq to carve out, and he couldn't even push Terrence Ferguson off the field. I think it was a 1A, 1B scenario, and Terrence Ferguson looked tremendous in limited role with the Rams this year. I think Sadiq is just as good, if not better.
I just looked at it real quick. Sadiq measured 6'3" and 245. Colston Loveland was 6'6", 245. Tyler Warren 6'5", 256. So that's what I just heard. The CBS pod had a analyst, draft guy, combine guy come on and was talking to him about it. And his only beef with Sadiq was size, and more so height than weight. Not that whatever team gets him will ask him to do a lot of blocking, but I think he's there. That's the weakness in his game. He's shorter than what you want a premier tight end to be, and I don't think he's blocking to a eighth of the level that George Kittle will. But if you're, these teams doing their homework, they're not drafting him to do that. They'd be drafting him to just go out and catch passes.
Yeah. Yeah, and we even have a comment from YouTube saying, he had Ferguson, but he couldn't beat out Ferguson. And this last year, he didn't have Ferguson. So that's just, I get where you're saying, when you're looking at a sophomore year, Ferguson is a junior coming out, the nod's going to come to him. It's I, I'm not saying he's Matthew Golden. I think he's going to do much better than that. But it reminds me a little of that. Of he doesn't have the college production, but he's incredibly athletic, and that's going to translate. Sounds so similar to Matthew Golden last year. I think Sadiq is going to be flex play worthy in fantasy, but I know some people are saying, I have tight end premium. Should I draft him at like the 105, 106? And I'm like, that's how high people are getting on him in fantasy purposes. And I'm here saying pump the brakes, late first, early second. Like, granted, we're all in agreement here. We try not to pay for tight ends because of the positional advantage. That's, I'm sure, part of it, but he's a very, very interesting one to see. If his athleticism can actually translate to good fantasy production, that would be huge. Eagles would be very interesting to see him at too.
Especially if they let Brown go or trade Brown. That would be, perfect scenario. Or, not just the Eagles, but if he lands in a scenario like that, where there is just basically one pass catching wide receiver there, the Eagles move on from Brown, whatever team moves on from their main wide receiver or something like that, it would be a good scenario. It would stink to have him go to either, to a bad offense, obviously, or an offense that obviously has two very good pass catchers that are already there, or a good tight end and a good receiver where he just has almost no chance of like carving out a role year one. But hopefully he falls enough that he gets to a mid to higher end team and in the right scenario, but we shall see. He's also the tight end 9 on keep trade cut already.
Wow.
This is going to sound weird for me to say, but that seems low.
It's reasonable. He's just below like Pitts and Laporta and just above like Kincaid, Ferguson, Kittle, that range. So
yeah. That's about where I'd have him. But when you're looking at Loveland, Warren last year, they were in 3 to 5 to begin with. Granted, that's where they're at now. But granted, I guess it's still early. We're still ahead of the game some. So.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Other
talk about some real NFL players.
Yeah.
These guys could all get fucking die in a car crash before the NFL.
Oh,
I'm just saying they haven't fucking even signed a contract yet.
Yep. Well, speaking of which, let's go into the big news of the night. David Montgomery traded to the Texans. Out here, looking to get more of a role. Texans out here realizing Woody Marks just can't actually stay on the field. If you've been listening to us for a while, we brought up towards the end of the season, Woody Marks, I think in games he started or games he's played, I think there were 2 or 3 that he didn't go into the blue tent for or get taken out because of an injury, like for precautionary for a couple plays to a couple series. Like Woody Marks just has not been a main running back that you can have take the bulk of your carries. And I think Houston realized that. I think that was a problem with Houston, is Stroud could just be rushed like no other. And so getting this big hunk of a running back to just plow through defenses, slow that pass rush. Great move. I love by the Texans. What are your guys' thoughts?
I kind of like it for all parties involved. I think it's a positive move for fantasy, for dynasty value, for everybody that directly affected. I think as weird as it sounds, I think this is actually solid for Woody Marks of all people, just because I don't see them now bringing somebody else in. And if they would have signed like ETN or Walker, that's scarier for Marks than this. Woody Marks is more of a pass catcher, smaller frame guy that they can now use in like a 1A, 1B, third down type of role. So I think this actually helps Woody Marks retain some of his value, where if they would have brought in like an all-purpose back that could have just wiped his value out completely. I believe Monty's 29 now too, with a good amount of wear and tear on him. He's been pretty solid as far as health goes, so I'm not too worried about him like missing time. But I also believe that he's old enough with enough miles on him that they won't just lean on him crazy heavy. I think this is solid for both Marks and Monty. I believe they'll both have a decent role in fantasy here, whereas Marks really could have just been wiped out. And if Monty would have stayed with Detroit, it would have been another year of them phasing him more out. So I do believe this is positive. Obviously, a bump for Gibbs, but I'm not calling him the 101. There's no way they're just putting 30 plus touches on Gibbs every week. He's not built for that. He's a Ferrari. He's not an everyday driver. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel the Lions did Montgomery dirty. He's from Cincinnati. He's posted on Twitter time and time again that he loves the Bengals. He loves Cincinnati. He loves the area. They could have shipped him off to the Bengals, yet they didn't. But fantasy-wise, I think it's a big boost because Woody Marks will not stay healthy. There's no one else in the backfield. Joe Mixon's good as retired. And Montgomery his workload has been less because Jir Gibbs is there. It's almost like a rejuvenated, fresh Montgomery could be the lead back in Houston. And it's such a fantasy-friendly offense because there's no one else there. Montgomery has 33 touchdowns in the last 3 years. Sure, that could be the Lions' run game predicated, but Montgomery still he was knuckles for a reason, and in that division, getting the Titans and the Colts twice a year, who can they bring? They're not getting a high draft pick running back. Are they signing? Is ETN signing there? Is Kenneth Walker signing there? It is entirely possible that David Montgomery is the Texans' lead back this year. And I think fantasy-wise, that could be tremendous because he's been pretty durable. He hasn't had that many touches the last 3 or 4 years. I really, really like it for like Brian said, for all parties involved. The Texans made this deal for a reason. They gave up 2 picks and a player. It's almost as if the Texans are fine writing David Montgomery as their 1A, 1B this year, and love it. Don't buy him now. Now is the wrong time to be buying. But I don't know what other move they can make to have you feel like they aren't going to utilize him for at least 50% of the touches.
He's the perfect guy to have there with Marks, who, again, Marks is a speedier, pass-catching, smaller type of running back. That's probably the reason that he couldn't complete games, because they were asking him to carry too much of a load. Him and the ghost of Nick Chubb and Dari Ungabwale were the only fucking healthy running backs they had. So I think this is a perfect scenario. It just helps Monty can shine and get a lot of first and second down work, and Marks can be used in a role that he's more meant to be used in. They're also a team with a very good defense, arguably the best defense in football. That usually predicates a team leaning on the run to drain clock, and the defense can just keep putting them back on the field. And I just think it works out. I don't think there's much downside at all to this. Yeah. Sure, there's maybe 1 or 2 spots Montgomery could have gone that maybe look a little better on paper, but this is good. And even like I led off with, I think even good for Marks' value.
Yeah. Before I go, we have a comment. There's a spelling correction. It's what about Nixon? It's actually meant what about Mixon?
Retired. He's done.
And the other is Chubb, but Chubb is actually his contract is up with the Texans this offseason. So Chubb is somewhere else. Mixon is there for one more year, 29 years old. You think Mixon is just completely done? Is he going to have retire or at least compete with Marks a little?
As of it was 6 days ago in the sleeper blurb on Mixon that one of the reporters from the Houston Chronicle said it is reportedly expected the Texans will part ways with Joe Mixon, so he's all likely to just not be there. Whether he goes to another team or not is uncertain, or retires. That's not reported on yet, but I'm quite sure he's not going to be on the Texans.
And if that was 6 days ago, that was before Montgomery trade.
Right, so exactly. So why, if they got news that Mixon was staying, why then trade for Monty?
Yeah. I love this move for the Texans. I mean, you're not trading this for Montgomery to bring another back in. So Montgomery's your lead back here, pairing with Marks. I think, as you mentioned, with the stronger defense that they have, that bringing in this type of running back that can pound the ball, that can get that first downs, that can just run it up the gut, drain the clock, control the games, I think is going to work really well for the Texans. It's obviously in dynasty value, Woody Marks' value is going down. To some extent, it probably was higher than it should have been just because of his injury history. If you're trying to offload him and were able to, good for you. If you're trying to still, you probably want to hold on to him to see what exactly type of split it's going to be. But I think, if anything, this is going to be great for Stroud too. I think having this type of running back to just make those pass rushers at least hesitate a little is going to really at least give him an extra half a step to hopefully go back to his rookie year and not just keep regressing. There's still hope, but they really need something to help out there. And Montgomery's one thing, get him another weapon or some other things to kind of help out. And overall, it wasn't a move I expected, but it's a move I can't find any fault with.
So does that now make Woody Marks Sonic? So when Woody Marks gets hit and he drops all of his rings, does that's a
as long as he picks up at least one of those rings, he can bounce off at least one more tackle. That's the rules of Sonic. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Monty I had to look it up. He's got 7 seasons now. He's 7 seasons completed, and he usually plays the majority of games. His worst season, he played 13. He usually plays 15, 16, 17. So he's seen a lot. He's a veteran. He's 5'11", 230, so he can definitely pass block. He knows where to be. I don't recall the Lions ever complaining that he was getting Jared Goff blown up. It's a win, man. He's a solid veteran. You've never heard anything negative about him off field, bullshit like that. He's just, a solid ass NFL running back. So good for him. For my own, fantasy purposes and just selfish reasons, I fucking love this because I have a ton of Monty because I've always believed in him. I have him in a lot of scenarios where I had him as Gibbs's handcuff, so to speak, which is fantastic now because he's just his own standalone value, and now that pushes up Gibbs' value. And I had him on lots of rosters where I just had Monty as like running back depth, and now boom, he's a fucking a starter again. So, yeah, man, happy days here. I was quite pleased about this news.
Yes.
Yeah. And actually, I didn't comment on that. Gibbs, I think, jumps up a couple spots in redraft, but I don't think he's not the 101. Bijan Robinson still is. Bijan has even less competition just with everything around him. Sure, Kyle Pitts got franchise tag. You got Drake London there, but it's still less than Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. Like, there's so many more mouths to feed with the Lions. Nevertheless, presumably the Lions are getting someone else to complement Gibbs. They need someone that's a big back to just run it up the gut when you need it. That's what Montgomery was. Gibbs is that speedier outside guy, the pass catcher. Like, you need someone else there. And they might not take as many rushes as Montgomery, but it's going to be enough with all those weapons there that Bijan is still ahead of Gibbs in my book. It might be that Gibbs jumps up to the 103-4 range versus the 5-7, like bring him up a couple spots in that in redraft in that extent. But it's something where he's still dynasty running back too. He's no knock on Gibbs, but he's still not the redraft top running back.
Tyler Algier to the Lions, lock it in. Oh God, no!
Or Rico Dowdle. And that's quite likely. Or they spend like late day 2 capital or day 3. They're not leaving Gibbs as just the guy there. It's not going to happen.
I think the draft is the most likely 3rd or 4th round. I think just with how many people you have to pay, you got to pay Amon-Ra, Gibbs, Goff. You got to keep under contract. Laporta's coming up, like Jameson Williams. Like, there's so many people.
Aiden Hutchinson makes it if he's not already. He already got his giant bag, or he's about to get one.
Yeah,
one or the other. He's getting paid, or he's already paid.
So there's so many people to pay there that you could pay. Like, when you're looking at an Algier that could come in, you're looking at probably paying $6 to $10 million for a year. You're much rather go for a 3rd or 4th round rookie, reset that clock much cheaper, get a bigger back there, than going kind of into the free agency for that. Use free agency for other such and get that back up in the draft is what I expect. Or just when you're looking at it from a cap standpoint, that's what makes most sense.
For sure. But there'll be a guy there. There'll be a 1st and 2nd down goal line type, big, heavy duty running back. It's just, again, Gibbs is not your daily driver, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some tags.
Yeah. So we had 3 big franchise tags that happened this offseason. Kyle Pitts, Breece Hall, George Pickens. We've briefly touched on this a little, but let's kind of all give our thoughts on each of them. The other one was Daniel Jones was given the transitional tag. Other than that, other players that were expected to or thought to were not. Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, whether they get a deal done to re-sign back with their teams before free agency or at the start of free agency, or if they go somewhere else is yet to be determined. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with those. But these are the main 3 that were tagged. I think we can probably skip over Pickens a little. We've talked so much about Pickens that this is the right spot for him. It's huge that he goes back to the Cowboys, presumably a long-term deal at some point. What's thoughts on Pitts and Hall going back to their original locations with the franchise tag?
We all, along with just about everybody in the fantasy community, are sad about Hall. No one wanted him to go there. There was so many other spots that he could have landed that just, at least on paper, would look so much better for fantasy. Let me try to do the glass half full thing here with him. He should have no competition, and we do love volume for fantasy. And I know there's Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen there, but when Hall was healthy, which was most of the year, he was the majority running back. Those guys really only got work when he was banged up a little bit. So I have zero fear there. When you look at other backfields and guys nipping at your heels, Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen are fucking nothing. They're just the definition of middling, happen to be on an NFL roster type of running back. So, and again, I'm just being glass half full guy for Breece Hall here. I do hate this move. I'd rather him have gone somewhere else, but he'll get a lot of the work. If it is Justin Fields or a rookie quarterback or some journeyman free agent, they'll probably look at what's in front of them and want to hand the ball off or want to check it down. And Brees is a very good pass catching running back, has had a lot of volume pass catching. So although I hate the move, I think this might even trigger Hall to fall farther down draft boards than he should. I think for dynasty fantasy purposes, it'll really lower him farther than he should. He's a guy that if I'm going to start up this offseason, which I've still behaved myself and not done any of yet, he's a guy that I'd almost certainly target in like dynasty startups where I want to load up, especially since I'm all super flex. I want quarterbacks. I want wide receivers. I tend to wait on running back. Hall will be a guy that I target for sure because I think he's going to just have a stink on him because of this. And the dude's good. I've said it every time we bring up Hall. He passes the eye test. I think any time you see him with low yards per carry or inefficient stats, it's because of the dog shit team that he's been unfortunately drafted to and stuck with since he got in the league. Brees Hall is a very fucking good NFL running back. So this news stinks, but I'm probably going to end up being higher on him than the majority of people, especially with where he's going to be ranked.
Yeah, I'm lower than most, but I think, I'm sure it's the Jets franchise and management clouding my judgment. They had Brees Hall, yet they drafted Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. Why? Like, do the Jets know something that we don't? Probably not. But they still drafted them for a reason. So let's say the Jets' offense gets better. Let's say I've seen some outlandish scenarios where the Jets get Fernando Mendoza. Let's say the offense gets better. Let's say they get Garrett Wilson gets a full season of health. They took Mason Taylor, I believe, the tight end last year, who's a really good prospect. If the offense gets better, does that mean less touches for Hall? There's more mouths to feed. I'm not sold. I don't like, everyone was hoping that Hall was going somewhere bigger and better. Kansas City, Seattle, Jacksonville, somewhere. Does it leave a sour taste in people's mouths that he's back in the Jets? What if the Jets continue to jet? Fantasy wise, I get it. He's a really, really top tier talent. I'm out on him for fantasy. I'll if I'm wrong, at me, bookmark me, save this moment 58 minutes in. I think Brees Hall maybe like mentally and broken, like I'm with the Jets again. Like, is he playing for a contract next year? He had his first 1,000-yard season this year in the offense was almost only Brees Hall because Garrett Wilson only played 5 or 6 games. I don't know. I just don't know if the Jets can elevate Hall to the fantasy god that people proclaim him to be.
Yeah, for Hall, I was definitely hoping a fresh start somewhere, go somewhere else. For me, the worry about Hall, it isn't Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis. Like, they spent a 4th or 5th round. Teams are going to do that for running backs that fall. That's not the Jets drafting those running backs isn't a knock on Hall for me. That's just we're securing our RB2 and we're going to be using that. It's like that teams do that. For me, it's the Jets haven't been able to string together a good team, a good offense. And as Seattle has noticed, or Seattle's doing, running back is not necessary to have a strong offense. Paying a running back is not necessary. Like, that's kind of one of the last things you put into your offense when you're forming it together is the running back, because running backs get injured more easily. They don't last as long. They age quicker. Like, you want running backs last. You want to get your quarterback right. You want to get some wide receivers, maybe a tight end. Then, oh, sweet, let's get a running back. There's also the fact that running backs tend to more quickly produce in the NFL. So you don't need to wait 3 years for a running back to do well, as some wide receivers take 2-3 years to develop that route tree, learn the different coverages. Like, running backs year 1 can produce, year 2. So I get the move by the Jets. You don't want to let this top tier running back go away, but also, like, it's so difficult to do anything with him in fantasy because Jets offense isn't going to be good. Like, who's their quarterback next year? Justin Fields? Does that give you confidence in Breece Hall? Not really. So, I think I probably lean more towards you, Ryan, where I'm going to be a little higher on consensus than him, and I might be buying him in a few places or whatnot. Like, it's a franchise tag. Unless he signs an extension, he might be, we're going to go through this song and dance next year of he'll probably drop in value towards the beginning of the season, and then towards the end of season or end of trade deadline, people are going to be like, ooh, maybe he goes to the Chiefs again, or, like it's the whole song and dance that's going to happen again. Like, buy low, sell high. I expect I'll probably try and buy him in some leagues, and I actually have recently too. So, whereas Kyle Pitts, I mean, he's slowly getting better and better. I mean, they just need a QB that can stay healthy and consistent, and they just haven't while Pitts has been there. And they need to figure out, is Penix that person? Because they've told Cousins, we're dropping you at the beginning of the year. So, like, Cousins is out of there. So Penix hopefully is going to be healthy. And is he going to actually be that person to really elevate London and Pitts? I mean, it's kind of I was hoping he'd go somewhere for a fresh start, but I totally understand the move, and I still think he'll do well there. He's a top 10 dynasty tight end. He's going to do, top 10 scoring, but, part of it's grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Like, he could go to these other places and do better, but more than likely, if they can actually get their quarterback to stay healthy, Pitts in Atlanta is going to do well.
Just right quick before we fully go on to Pitts, I just want 2 last little bits on Breece Hall, since I was being the positive guy on him. First, something Patrick said made me double check this. He did finally get 1,000 yards this year rushing. As you also said, Patrick, he was the only show in town. Garrett Wilson was gone by like week 6 or whatever it was. So every defense came in saying, all right, we're just going to shut down Hall. Hall still managed to stay healthy, get over 1,000 yards, and run for just shy of like 4.4 per carry. Not that that's some impressive, super crazy impressive number, but 4.4 is respectable. And he did it with the entire 11 men on defense just looking right at him every snap. So that's a positive. And then even more positive for just his overall dynasty value is he's not even 25 yet. So this time next year, when he is just a completely unrestricted free agent, he'll be 25 years old. That's a pretty big deal. He'll be arguably the best running back again on the free agency market. And if he goes to one of those perfect destinations, you'll be happy that you bought him right now when his value is down because of the Jets franchise tagged him. But that's it. I've talked far. The last thing I'll say about Breece Hall is the graphic we have. He looks like, man, fuck, I'm on the Jets. I just saw that helmet. Damn it.
That's why I selected that picture. It was kind of hoping he'd go somewhere else. Okay, let's do that there, and But no, that's some very good points about Hall.
With Pitts, I think there really wasn't a lot of spots where he could have went that I'd have been happier with. He's in the perfect for fantasy scenario, at least not that the Falcons themselves or Michael Penix is a perfect scenario, but the perfect scenario where he really just has one wide receiver and him, and they're the key points of the passing game. I don't know, Bijan does catch a lot of passes, but just as far as the pass catchers, he doesn't have two big wide receivers around him. So that's pretty cool. And he's, let's all face it, he's not a fucking tight end. He's a large wide receiver. He has been since the day he was drafted. So
Yep.
he's the Falcons 1A, 1B with Drake London. So I think this is pretty good. I think he probably kept his value by staying there. I don't think he could have really went anywhere necessarily that would have been some huge bump for him. So why not just keep him where he's already at, where he can sleep in the bed he's been sleeping in for 4 years, and go to the restaurants that he's liked for the last 4 years and just be comfortable. And so the coach he has coming in is notoriously pretty good for tight ends too, so that's a plus. So I think Pitts is kind of right where he should be as far as dynasty value, right there behind the three big rookies that came in last year, and Bowers and McBride. You can argue him right behind those guys.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. You've got to think Arthur Blank will pony up for a quarterback in the draft that may be slipping, or a decent price free agent. I saw a lot of Drew Aller rising talk this week. Maybe the Falcons, if he's there in the third or fourth round, maybe the Falcons take a quarterback that can step in. If Cousins is gone, and I've heard a lot of talk that Penix won't be ready, they're going to need something. And you can get a quarterback that was, this time last year, Drew Aller was a first-round pick. If you could get a first-round pick at a discount, it could be a significant shot in the arm to the offense.
I think they probably go for a vet or trade for a vet rather than, with what they have going on and such, and Penix not there. You're not going to want to coach up a rookie to be a part-time quarterback until Penix is back. You'd want someone else probably. Granted, they still could draft a rookie quarterback, but I'd expect if they don't think Penix is going to be ready, you're going to look at a Carson Wentz or something like that.
Oh.
That's a free agent. That's just going to
Derek Carr.
tie you over for Joe Flacco. Someone to hold you over for 46. Yeah.
Jameis Winston. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I winced a little when you said quarterbacks falling in this draft. I'm like, they can fall further than they are outside of Mendoza. Like, it doesn't seem like there's any. It seems like it's all career backups, and at that point, it's just kind of pick it when you want it type thing.
Career backup like Michael Penix?
The Falcons did already come out and say 100% they're moving on from Cousins, or they're letting him go. So I thought so. Does that mean, and I didn't look into the aftermath of that, does that mean that Penix is set to be healthy, or they assume Penix is going to be healthy?
It depends on where you look at it and who you talk to. There's some saying expected to be ready to start the season, but, injury setbacks and stuff is going to be very interesting to see. Right.
So, I mean, one of two things then. Either Penix is healthy and that's why they said Cousins could go, or they just fully plan on bringing in one of these journeymen. Again, Carson Wentz, perfect example, one of those type of guys to just kind of bridge to whenever Penix is healthy. None of which I guess is great for Pitts, but it's not like Pitts has been working with anything great. He's been working with a shell of Kirk Cousins and whatever we've gotten so far out of Penix. We had the whole big breakdown with Drake London where, London has actually done okay with both. So Pitts, I guess, is done okay with both. I can't imagine it's much of a step down from what they're already working with.
Yeah. Yep.
So not pictured amongst these guys would be the guys that didn't get tagged, which I guess the biggest of note when you're looking at the running backs here, when you look at Sad Brees Hall, it would be that Kenneth Walker officially not tagged and Travis Etienne not tagged. You also have Algier and Dowdle, I guess, right up behind them as far as like bigger names with some track records that are going to be on the market officially. Now, this doesn't mean their own teams can't bring them back on some type of deal. That's always an option. They're free agents to everyone, including their own teams, but I don't really have much speculation on any of them. I don't have any gut feeling that, oh, Walker's going to go and ETN's going to stay or Dowdle's going to end up here. It's interesting enough. As I said a little ways back, the only thing I can guarantee you is that we're probably going to dislike all the landing spots. It's just going to be not what we want. It's going to clutter other backfields, and we'll see. I mean, I think at least the big two with ETN and Walker, I think we'd all be thrilled to just see them stay where they're at as far as their overall fantasy value. The Chiefs, I guess, are the clear perfect landing spot for any of these, especially the top two free agent running backs. Can't really think of any else at the top of my head. I'm sure there's one or two that look good on paper, but the Chiefs, that would be if ETN or Walker went on a big deal to the Chiefs, they would just skyrocket as far as their current value, probably to a point where they'd be overvalued. And then with the wide receivers, it's just such a shit wide receiver class. Alec Pierce was like probably the next best after Pickens, and now he is going to be a free agent, but I heard some shit in the last couple of days that the Colts are still going to try to give him like a big enough deal to keep him from walking. So I don't think there's a ton to touch on with the wide receivers, but you guys got any thoughts on I guess especially ETN or Ken Walker?
Yeah, I pulled up the list of NFL teams just to see, okay, who could be interested in a running back, whether that's a 1A, 1B type thing. And honestly, you're looking at the Steelers. Warren, they got Gainwell, who's leaving. You got the Commanders. And
they've got Bill, though.
Saints to some extent, Cardinals, depending on how you feel about others. So, like, there's not some great spots outside of literally them going back to where they were. It would be very interesting to see, but, a lot of for these other things you're probably expecting, there's rumors that Denver wants to bring in another running back. So, like, Harvey to become the 1B to ETN, like, you're looking at these other ones, and just for the situations that Seattle and Jacksonville were in, you're not looking at another great situation outside of the Chiefs that you're like, okay, if they go there, they're going to be on a Super Bowl potential team. They're got a great offensive line. Like, it's almost all downgrades depending on where they were to go from there. And you got a good running back rookie class too, so it's going to be such a crapshoot for any and all running backs this offseason, just with free agency and then the draft, that the values are gonna go up and down and up and down. The other interesting one, with new head coach, running back wasn't used towards the end of the season. Ravens is an interesting one to think about, with Derrick Henry being, what is he, 31 years old now or something like that, but like, it's Derrick Henry. You're not going to want to go there to work with Derrick Henry, but yeah, it's very, very interesting to see. Vikings maybe, but who's their quarterback?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, if I was Walker, if I was ETN, I'd be looking to try and go back, give a little bit of a hometown discount. It's not a great running back market unless you're just in there to get a bunch of money versus actually competing.
Yeah, if anything, like, if Walker and ETN can stay put, that'd be great. If anything, maybe they could text each other like, okay, hey, what if we just like negotiate a deal between ourselves? Walker to the Jaguars and ETN to the Seahawks. That'd be fine. I'd be okay with that. That seems like a pretty good fit. The fantasy community wants a marquee running back to the Chiefs. I don't know. Is that Is that the best scenario? I mean, look at the Chiefs' backfield. Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. Are they old and broken down and not good? Probably. But what has that backfield done? Like, I don't know if it just feels like a slam dunk, like in people's minds, because the Chiefs have been good for a long time. I don't want a big name running back going to the Chiefs. I I don't know if Mahomes misses time, the offensive line's good, not amazing. I don't know. Is the running game bad? I don't know how much fantasy goodness that offense can do, even with Andy Reid. I don't want a big name going to the Chiefs. I don't even want to see Jeremiah Love go to the Chiefs. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it.
I'll disagree with that just for two reasons. I trust the Chiefs offense. I trust Andy Reid. And second, even though Isaiah Pacheco is clearly not that good of a running back, before he broke his leg, he was fucking awesome for fantasy.
Yeah.
And the last couple years, he's been a shell of himself because of injury. Kareem Hunt's been a shell of himself for 4 years. So, yeah, it's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing to the Chiefs. Can they not run the ball, or is it because they're trying to do it with a broken-legged Isaiah Pacheco and a 47-year-old Kareem Hunt? If one of those guys went there, whether we like it or not or agree with it, they would just skyrocket in value, and maybe to a point where I think they'd probably be overvalued, but I think they would be assets. If ETN or Walker was the starting running back for the Chiefs week 1 this year, everybody would be hype about him.
Yeah. I think that the Chiefs are going to take a free agent, sign a free agent running back, and I think draft a running back. I think who they sign in free agency is going to be very telling as to who they're trying to aim to get in the NFL draft. Both archetype wise of, are you looking for a big bruiser that they're, getting a Tyler Algier, or are they going to go with a Gainwell who's a pass catcher? That's going to be very telling as to who they like and who they're aiming for in the draft. That you have some running backs that are very good, just rushers, and you have some great pass catching running backs. That there's not a whole lot that are incredibly versatile. It's one or the other. That the Chiefs, I think, will sign one, and they're going to aim for the other typical running back archetype in the NFL draft, and keep an eye on that. Obviously, if you get ETN or Walker, you're not going to spend too much on a running back, but I think it's going to end up being a lower tier guy. If the Chiefs could get Kenneth Gainwell for pass catching and get Jadarian Price from Notre Dame, like that would be amazing to see, type of thing. I don't buy into the Chiefs getting Jeremiah Love. I think if Love is there, they're more than likely to trade back, get some more picks. Like Andy Reid's not going to spend a top 10 draft pick on a running back. They're going to get something else. They're going to get more picks if he's still there. Or, there's talk about the Titans or the Commanders or someone above them in the draft taking Love. I don't expect the Love to go to the Chiefs. I expect something else to happen. But the Chiefs whoever is going to be the running back at the Chiefs, whoever signs there in free agency is going to immediately jump in value, where I'm probably going to sell them.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, it's going to be that whatever rookie is going to go there, they're going to jump in value, and the vet's going to come back down to earth some. So that's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
I agree that Andy Reid and just that organization is well run enough and smart enough that they're not taking Jeremiah Love at, what are they, 9th overall pick, 10th overall. It's just, I'd be shocked. I mean, anything can happen, but it just doesn't make sense. I did look, just for my own curiosity, to have a decent amount of shares of him. I pulled up the sleeper blurb for Mahomes, and Andy Reid's already saying he's rehabbing well. He's in the building every day, working hard, and there's like a very realistic shot that he's ready for the start of the season. So,
no,
yeah, man.
Wow.
Dude, modern medicine has gotten fucking crazy. These dudes are bouncing back from injury.
That's true.
They're back on the field so much fucking faster than even they were like 5 to 7 years ago. Obviously, it's way early enough now. We're just flipped the page to March. Daylight savings time didn't hit yet. We're way before the NFL season. But that being said, there's a lot of time between now and the NFL season. He's already had the surgery. He's already rehabbing. He's a quarterback, not a fucking wide receiver or running back.
Yeah. I think he'll miss some time, but I think the schedule is going to define things about how careful they're going to be and such. But yeah, that's very interesting to hear. The one other one to talk about is Daniel Jones, who got the transition tag. Just to explain a little about what the transition tag is, because it's been used. This is the third time it's been used in the last 6 years, so it is rarely used. Is that it's very similar to the non-exclusive franchise tag, where Jones has the ability to discuss and agree to a deal with another team, and then the Colts have the ability to say, we want to sign him to that deal instead. The difference being is that the non-exclusive franchise tag, if that happens, the Colts would get 2 first-round picks for the non-exclusive franchise tag, whereas the transition tag, that's not included. I'm presuming in this case the transition tag is also cheaper than the franchise tag because of that. So it's kind of they're saying, hey, go out on the market, see what other people are going to offer you. If it's going to be a ton of money, we'll let you go, essentially. But if it's going to be reasonable, we want to see what the market value of Daniel Jones is for the Colts to then see if they want to sign him, or if no one does, he stays on the tag. So, but to me, that this move makes the most sense for the Colts. You know, you can see what the market value is on him. You don't have to overpay him. You can, I mean, he's injured. He's coming, you know, he looked great, but that injury was, who knows if he's going to be ready to start the season. So I get that move by the Colts. You don't need to sign him to a 1 year and prove it deal. Like, he's proven it. He was in the Vikings practice squad and then led the Colts to the top seed in the division before the injury. So like,
best record in the NFL before the injury.
Yes, even better. Yeah,
that was how good they were playing under him.
Yeah. So not saying, hey, we're going to sign you to a big deal now. Say, okay, what's the market value? We'll sign you to that. It's like, it's a very business move for the Colts, which I think is a smart move by them.
Totally agree. I've been, I mean, literally since he got injured, I've been a proponent that he proved it, that he did enough. He made them like borderline unstoppable. It just worked with his skill set, with Taylor, with what they have is with Warren and the pass catchers. It just worked out. So why not? It's so fucking difficult to find a capable NFL quarterback that can win games. Not that Jones has some overall great winning record, but the brief times in New York where he had a decent team around him with like Saquon and okay defense, they went to the playoffs. And as soon as he stepped into this different environment here with some good players and a decent offensive line, and they were fantastic. They're the best record in football. So why not? This is again, totally agree. The transition tag is a perfect way to handle it rather than giving him a 1 year deal or like overpaying him on some multi-year contract. Why not do this? They can end up just signing him on their own terms. And if some team wants to overpay, boom, they walk away with multiple first rounders and can look elsewhere. So I don't really think I need to add what you said. Transition
tag is they don't get the first rounders. So it's less, but they don't get the first rounders if someone else pays it. So the Colts walk away with nothing if they decide not to match the deal of another team. But if no one does anything, they pay less on the tag for this year. So it's kind of a
They also have the option to match, right? That's the whole thing.
Yes,
right.
That's the thing.
There you go. So that's why this makes the most sense, because they can then say, okay, this dude's going to get offered $40 million a year somewhere. That's way out of our fucking budget. We don't think he's worth that much. Then they let him walk. So yeah, and if someone says the best deal he gets is a 2-year, $25 million, then they're like, oh shit, that's less than we were willing to pay. So great. So yeah, it's like a win-win.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hold up. We don't need to be giving Chris Ballard any more first-round picks. Let's pump the brakes on that. In the NFL, you're going to have to pay your quarterback to win. I mean, the contracts that these quarterbacks, these game-changing, elite tier quarterbacks are getting, you're going to have to, like, whatever they're paying Jones, it's worth. He's proven it on a downtrodden Giants team that went to the second round of the playoffs. Jones proved it this year. Just pay up now. You're not, instead of throwing darts at a draft pick or a free agent quarterback, just, you got him in house. You know what you've got. Whatever, like, it's almost like a blank check for Jones. I'm fine with it. Just, if the transition tag is a discount of any kind, sign him to that. Get some better offensive pieces to help him out, and hopefully that Jones, I mean, if he starts the year on the pup, so be it. He'll be 4 games fresher leading into the playoffs. I can't believe that I'm a big Daniel Jones believer. He proved it. His agent needs to be in the Hall of Fame, him and Kirk Cousins' agent, because they're getting their clients paid. And yeah, I will gladly take a prove it year for Daniel Jones. I hope that they could be 8-1 again this season. Yeah, I like the move. Hopefully they can still retain Pierce, and I have no qualms about the deal.
Well, there you have it from our resident Indianapolis Colts fan.
One of the few Colts fans.
Yeah, man. I mean, at the end of the day, what the Colts did this year looked far and away better than anything that's happened since Andrew Luck was their quarterback, right? So yeah. How can you not want to just look into that at least a little further and see what he can do when healthy and playing a full season?
Yeah.
Is there any other franchisee type news that you guys want to hit on? I've generally reached the time period where I've got to take a leak, so I was gonna dip for a second, but I mean, if we're at a good ending point, we could just wrap.
Yeah. I think we can save it up for next week with free agency talk. I mean, teams can start talking to potential free agents on the 9th next week. So that's next Monday. So that means that we'll hear some rumors, some other things. So we'll be able to kind of talk to you about and dive into kind of those rumors some. Maybe we'll talk about our best destinations that, we'd love running backs to go to this spot or wide receivers to go here. Maybe we'll even pick certain free agents and decide where we think we want them to go or think would be best spots. So we'll really dive into kind of free agency some next week, expectations. And then obviously the week after we'll be diving into the implications of what exactly happened before, after that it's a month to the NFL draft, and which is crazy to think. So we'll be doing some mock drafts of dynasty redraft. Maybe we'll have a guest on and such. And so, but yeah, next week expect free agency talk because that's right upon us.
For sure. And we were also kicking around the idea of just some like positional breakdowns, after maybe even after the post NFL draft, just looking at not just our redraft rankings, but like, the big ones, the Fantasy Pros and Keep Trade Cuts, like redraft rankings, and just looking at the top 25 or so, giving our thoughts on that. Divisional breakdowns, divisional breakdowns are great because we can kind of just spend an episode looking at 4 teams or, 8 teams with 2 divisions and just giving our thoughts on that. And plenty of content. And just every week that rolls by, little bits of more news trickle in, and then the news starts rolling in hard like a tidal wave, and next thing you know, we're at our fucking redraft drafts and hot and sweaty because it's August. So we'll keep it coming.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, a little shorter, but have a great rest of your evening, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in.
Sounds good, gang. See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.